Psalm 20. Heaven answers you. Every evil assignment is burned away. Now the words of Psalm 20 resound through centuries as a divine assurance to the weary heart. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob defend you. These are not merely poetic lines, they are proclamations from heaven, alive with the authority of divine intervention. This psalm was written for those standing in battle, those whose souls have been targeted, whose names have been whispered in darkness, and whose destinies have been contested by unseen forces. It is a song of deliverance for those who have cried in silence, those who have stood faithful while storms gathered around them. Psalm 20 is a heavenly decree. The moment you align your heart with God's will, heaven itself moves to burn away every evil assignment plotted against your life. In the ancient world, battles were fought with swords and chariots, yet the psalmist understood something profound. True victory does not come from human might, but from divine favor. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. This line dismantles the illusion of self-sufficiency. It calls you to surrender every earthly weapon and trust the fire of heaven to fight your unseen wars. There is a moment when all that remains is faith, a faith that trembles yet stands, a faith that whispers, God will answer me, even when surrounded by the shadows of betrayal, loss, and spiritual warfare. You might have noticed how life sometimes feels like a carefully orchestrated attack against your peace. It's not coincidence, it's a spiritual conspiracy. When you carry divine purpose, darkness marks you. When your calling begins to awaken, forces that once ignored you start to move. Envy, jealousy, manipulation, these are not just emotions. They are spiritual arrows designed to pull you away from divine alignment. Psalm 20 exists for such a time. It is the moment heaven says, enough. It is when the unseen fire of God descends, not to destroy you, but to burn every assignment written against you in the kingdom of darkness. God does not ignore the cries of his chosen ones. Heaven listens when you whisper in despair. The day of trouble is the day heaven bends its ear toward the faithful. Every tear you have shed has been recorded. Every word spoken against you has been weighed. Nothing escapes the divine court. When Psalm 20 declares, "May he send you help from the sanctuary," it is a legal declaration. God's throne becomes your defense. The unseen angels are dispatched as witnesses. The fire of the Holy Spirit as executioner of judgment. Evil plots dissolve in the heat of divine justice, and you stand not by your own merit, but by the covenant sealed through grace. Imagine a battlefield in the Spirit. You stand alone, but around you, an army invisible to human eyes begins to form. Angels draw their swords, and the enemy, those who plotted your fall, those who cursed your name, begin to tremble. The divine fire burns through every assignment of sickness, delay, confusion, and sabotage. Heaven answers not with words, but with movement. You feel it when doors that were sealed begin to open, when people meant to harm you are suddenly removed, when confusion turns to clarity, and when your spirit feels light again after a long night of warfare. This is not chance. It is the response of heaven to your faith. But let us go deeper. When the psalm says, "May the Lord remember all your offerings and accept your burnt sacrifice," it speaks to divine remembrance. Many of your prayers, sacrifices, and quiet obediences seemed forgotten. But heaven does not forget. Every act of faith becomes a record in the divine archive. The world may mock your devotion. People may say your faith brings no results, but in the realm unseen, every moment of surrender becomes fuel for the fire that will consume your enemies. Heaven waits for the fullness of time to answer, and when it does, the response is not partial, it is total deliverance. The moment you surrender your struggle to God, you ignite a spiritual transaction. You stop fighting for yourself and heaven fights for you. You stop explaining your innocence, and truth becomes your defender. You stop retaliating, and divine justice begins to move. The power of Psalm 20 lies in this exchange. It reminds you that the fire of heaven is not triggered by panic, but by faith. The same God who answered David in battle now watches over you. You are not forgotten. You are defended. There is a reason why every evil assignment must be burned away. Darkness cannot coexist with destiny. Every plot designed against your peace, your purpose, your mind, or your progress is an attempt to rewrite what heaven has already written. You must understand this. Hell cannot erase divine decrees. When God has spoken over your life, no sorcery, jealousy, or betrayal can undo it. Every attack becomes a confirmation of your spiritual importance. The greater your calling, the greater the warfare, but also the greater the protection. The fire that burns your enemies is the same fire that purifies your soul. Sometimes God allows the storm to rage so that you may see what He has hidden inside you. Without opposition, you would never discover your divine resilience. Without attack, you would never see how powerful the name of the Lord truly is. The enemy's fury is proof of your assignment. Psalm 20 teaches you to stand still and see the salvation of your God. You are not asked to fight for victory. You are asked to stand in it. The outcome has already been decided. Heaven does not lose battles. Even when you feel surrounded, remember this truth. The unseen realm is always tilted in your favor. Heaven moves in silence, yet with precision. When the enemy thinks he has succeeded, that is when God's plan begins to unfold. Every word curse spoken against you will be reversed. Every demonic assignment will be exposed. Your deliverance will not be hidden. It will be visible, undeniable, a testimony for others who still doubt that God intervenes. You must also understand that spiritual fire is not metaphorical. The fire of God represents purification, protection, and judgment. It consumes evil, but refines the righteous. When heaven answers you, it does not simply remove the problem, it transforms you into a living testimony. The psalm is not only a prayer, it is a transformation process. You enter it in distress, and you emerge in authority. You begin as a victim of attack, but end as a vessel of fire. When the psalmist says, "We will rejoice in your salvation," and in the name of our God we will set up our banners, it reveals something profound. Joy is not the result of victory, it is the weapon that brings it. When you praise in the middle of warfare, you confuse the enemy. When you lift your hands, though your heart is breaking, heaven moves faster. The sound of your worship summons the divine fire. That is why the chosen ones cannot remain silent. Every shout of praise becomes an arrow of light piercing through the enemy's darkness. Perhaps you have felt abandoned lately. You have prayed, yet nothing moved. You have waited, yet deliverance seemed far. Understand this, silence is not absence. Heaven often moves beneath the surface, preparing your vindication in ways you cannot perceive. Every delay has meaning, every unanswered prayer has timing. Psalm 20 assures you that the Lord will answer in the day of trouble. He does not delay forever. When your heart aligns with faith, when you release bitterness and choose trust, the heavens respond with unstoppable power. Let this sink deeply. There is no curse that can outlast divine fire. There is no evil that can withstand divine remembrance. Heaven does not just cancel attacks, it restores everything you lost because of them. When heaven answers, it does so completely, body, mind, spirit, and destiny. You are not left half-delivered, you are fully redeemed. The God of Jacob is your defender, and his memory is eternal. Therefore do not fear the arrows of the wicked. Their weapons are made of shadows, yours are forged in light. Their words fade, God's decree endures forever. When heaven answers, it burns the very root of evil, ensuring it cannot rise again. Every evil assignment against your name, your peace, your relationships, and your future is being turned into ashes. You will look back on this season and realize what was meant to destroy you only revealed the fire that could not be extinguished within you. Psalm 20 is not just a scripture, it is a weapon. Use it when you feel overwhelmed. Speak it aloud when fear visits your thoughts. Declare it when you wake and when you sleep. For every "May the Lord" written in it is not a wish, it is a prophecy. The heavens are not indifferent, they are attentive. The moment your faith calls, the response begins, and when it comes, it will burn away everything that was never meant to stay. Now take a breath. Heaven is closer than it seems. The same God who answered David stands ready to answer you. Your prayers are not in vain, your tears are not unnoticed, and your pain is not permanent. This is your appointed time for divine response. Heaven is moving on your behalf even now. And as the fire descends to consume every evil assignment, lift your eyes and know you are defended by a love that cannot fail. If this message spoke to your spirit, don't leave without subscribing to our channel. Join this community of faith, reflection, and divine awakening, because together we walk in the fire of God's protection and truth. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when the silence of heaven feels unbearable. You pray, you fast, you weep, and yet the heavens remain still. It is in this quiet that your faith is truly tested, for the absence of immediate answers is not the absence of divine presence. It is the hidden work of God. Psalm 20 was not written for moments of ease, but for days of deep waiting. When your enemies appear to prosper, when those who spoke against you seem untouched, and when every prayer echoes back without reply. Yet, beneath that silence, heaven is burning every evil assignment that has dared to touch your name. You cannot always see the flames, but you can feel the shifting. The invisible has already begun to move in your favor. Faith is a strange and powerful force. It defies logic. It believes while bleeding. It stands when there is nothing left to stand on. It lifts its hands when the weight of despair presses down. Psalm 20 teaches us that faith is not born in comfort but in conflict. May He send you help from the sanctuary and strengthen you out of Zion. These words were not whispered in a palace. They were shouted on the battlefield. The psalmist understood that the strength of the soul is tested only in the furnace of adversity. You do not grow through the blessings you receive. You grow through the battles you survive, and every time you refuse to surrender to fear, you invite heaven's fire to surround you. Many people mistake divine waiting for divine neglect. They say, if God loved me, He would have answered already. But love does not rush. Love builds. Love prepares. If heaven answered you too soon, you might not have the strength to carry what was given. The delay is not denial. It is development. Heaven is not ignoring you. It is refining you until you are strong enough to hold what you prayed for. God's timing is surgical. He knows the exact moment to release power so that no hand of the enemy can intercept it. The same God who delayed Joseph's freedom until Pharaoh was ready to promote him delays your victory until the platform for your testimony is fully prepared. Every second you wait, the foundation of your future is being fortified. The waiting season is not wasted time, it is holy time. Psalm 20 is filled with divine precision. Every line is a key to unlock a layer of heavenly intervention. When it says, "May the Lord grant you according to your heart's desire and fulfill all your purpose," it reveals a powerful truth. God's response is proportionate to your purpose. If your calling is great, your warfare will be fierce. If your destiny is luminous, your opposition will be dark. The intensity of your trial measures the magnitude of your anointing. Heaven will never allow you to face what you are not equipped to overcome. You are not being crushed, you are being calibrated. Every hardship aligns your spirit more accurately with divine will. Every disappointment cuts away another attachment to what is temporary. Heaven answers through transformation before it answers through manifestation. There are moments when the evil assignment against you feels relentless. People you trusted turn cold. Opportunities vanish. Plans collapse. You feel isolated in a world that does not understand your struggle. But this isolation is not punishment. It is protection. God removes people when their loyalty cannot handle your elevation. He closes doors when the next stage requires purity. He allows misunderstanding because he knows that false perception often shields you from premature exposure. The loneliness of the chosen is not a curse, it is preparation. Heaven answers not always with applause, but with separation. The burning away of evil assignments often includes the removal of familiar faces. Do not resist it. Every subtraction is divine arithmetic. When heaven removes, it is never to diminish, it is to multiply in another dimension. The enemy thrives in confusion. He wants you distracted, doubting, and divided. He knows that the moment your spirit aligns with divine confidence, his influence collapses. That is why warfare often intensifies right before breakthrough. When you feel everything falling apart, that is when heaven is closest. God's fire does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it comes through chaos, exposing what must be consumed. You may lose what you thought was essential, but you will never lose what is eternal. The fire burns what cannot remain, but it never touches what God has ordained. The evil assignments that once shadowed your life are being consumed even as you read these words. You may not see the ash yet, but it is forming beneath your feet. To live under the protection of Psalm 20 is to understand that divine help is not an illusion. It is a constant presence. God's sanctuary is not distant, it is within you. You are the temple where heaven dwells. The Spirit that raised Christ from the dead burns inside your very being. Every prayer ignites that inner flame. Every act of trust feeds it. Every moment of surrender intensifies it. The fire of heaven is not only descending upon you, it is rising within you. And once that fire takes hold, every demonic contract, every curse, every word spoken against your destiny is reduced to smoke. The psalmist says, "Now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving strength of his right hand." That "now I know" is not intellectual, it is experiential. It is the voice of someone who has walked through shadow and found the light faithful. It is the declaration of one who has seen betrayal, faced danger, endured rejection, and still found God standing immovable. When heaven answers, it does not merely silence your enemies, it exalts your testimony. Your life becomes evidence that God does not abandon his chosen. You stop needing to explain yourself because your results speak louder than your words. The same mouths that cursed you will one day testify of your favor. The true fire of heaven does not simply destroy, it exposes. Many of the attacks that once confused you were allowed so that hidden motives could be revealed. God permits certain betrayals because exposure is necessary for purification. Some people prayed for your fall while pretending to celebrate your rise. The divine fire separates truth from illusion, loyalty from convenience, light from imitation. Do not mourn what burns away. You cannot carry contamination into your next season. Heaven answers you by purging the atmosphere around you. It clears the spiritual air until only authenticity remains. There is a moment when the fire finishes its work, the smoke lifts, the air feels lighter, your spirit feels still. The war ends not with noise, but with peace. That is how heaven marks victory, not through applause, but through stillness. When the evil assignments are burned away, you will notice that anxiety no longer grips you the same way. The faces that once intimidated you lose their power. The situations that used to drain you no longer affect your inner calm. This is how you know heaven has answered, not because everything around you changed, but because something unshakable awakened inside you. You were never meant to live in constant fear of attack. You were designed to walk in authority. Psalm 20 is your reminder that the believer's posture is not defensive but triumphant. You are not running from darkness. Darkness flees from you. The more you understand who you are in the presence of God, the less you will bow to the intimidation of men or spirits. The enemy fears those who know their identity. When you remember that heaven itself backs you, you stop reacting and start reigning. You stop pleading and start declaring. You stop being hunted and start walking as one who carries divine fire. Every evil assignment loses its power the moment you refuse to partner with fear. Fear is the currency of darkness, but faith is the language of heaven. When you speak faith into chaos, you authorize angels to move. When you declare, God will answer me, you shift the atmosphere. Words are not small, they are spirit. When you use your voice to agree with the truth of Psalm 20, heaven aligns with your sound. That is why the psalm was written to be sung aloud. David knew that worship releases fire faster than warfare. The sound of praise breaks chains that silence could never touch. Your life may still bear the scars of old battles. You may carry memories of people who betrayed you, situations that drained you, moments when you almost lost faith. But even those scars carry glory. They are not reminders of defeat, they are records of survival. Every wound that did not kill you became a seal of divine endurance. You stand today because heaven intervened even when you did not see it. You breathe because unseen hands fought for you while you slept. The fact that you are reading these words is proof that the evil assignments failed. The fire of heaven already consumed what was meant to consume you. When God answers, he does so completely. He does not merely fix a circumstance, he shifts the season. When heaven intervenes, even the air around you changes. People who once dismissed you begin to recognize divine favor. Doors that stayed locked for years swing open effortlessly. The attacks stop because they no longer have a place to land. Your spirit becomes untouchable, not because the enemy stopped attacking, but because your vibration no longer matches his frequency. You have ascended into peace. That is the highest form of protection. In the realm of the spirit, every evil assignment begins with agreement. When someone curses you, their words require acceptance to manifest. But when you stand firm in Psalm 20, declaring that heaven defends you, their curses evaporate. No weapon can prosper without permission. Heaven answers by revoking the enemy's legal rights over your destiny. That is why repentance and forgiveness are powerful. They break agreements that once empowered darkness. The fire of heaven is both judgment and mercy. It destroys what was meant to harm you, and it frees you from everything that allowed it entry. Sometimes the answer from heaven does not look like rescue. It looks like revelation. God will show you patterns that need breaking, relationships that need ending, habits that need releasing. These are not punishments, they are pathways to freedom. Every time you obey, the fire burns brighter. Every time you resist compromise, heaven expands its covering. The protection of Psalm 20 is not automatic. It is activated through alignment. When your life resonates with God's will, your enemies lose access. That is why the psalm begins with a call for divine remembrance, because heaven responds to hearts that remain steadfast even under fire. The day will come when those who mocked your faith will search for your secret. They will ask how you survived storms that should have ended you. And your only answer will be, "Heaven answered me." You will not have to explain the mystery of grace. Your peace will speak louder than your explanation. The fire that once burned around you will now burn within you as wisdom, strength, and unshakable serenity. You will walk through future battles with calm authority, knowing that no weapon formed against you can stand, because every evil assignment is destined to meet the same end: ashes. This is the reality of those who trust in the name of the Lord. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. When you put your confidence in God, you disconnect from worldly systems of defense. You no longer depend on manipulation, flattery, or fear to survive. You depend on divine sovereignty. The name of the Lord becomes your shield, and no darkness can penetrate it. To invoke that name is to summon the full power of heaven into your circumstances. When you remember his name, heaven remembers your faithfulness. The true victory of Psalm 20 is not external, it is internal. It is the moment your soul stops trembling. It is when you realize that nothing can happen to you that is not permitted by divine love. Even your enemies are instruments in the hand of God, sharpening your discernment, strengthening your spirit, refining your obedience. When you see life through that lens, bitterness dies. You no longer resent those who wronged you. You thank God for using them to elevate you. Every attack becomes fertilizer for your next revelation. The ashes of your past battles become the soil of your future peace. There is no evil so strong that it can cancel divine favor. The universe itself bends to the decree of God. When he declares your deliverance, no witchcraft, no jealousy, no curse, no slander can override it. The handwriting of heaven overrides the handwriting of hell. The moment God says, "I have chosen you," the outcome is settled. You may pass through fire, but you will not be consumed. You may walk through water, but you will not drown. You may be misunderstood, but you will never be forsaken. Heaven answers in fullness or not at all. And when it does, everything that opposed you burns until only purity remains. Even now, as you reflect on your journey, you can trace the invisible hand that guided you through dangers you did not even perceive. You were preserved because someone interceded, because grace intercepted. The angels that guard you have never left their post. They watched as enemies plotted and laughed as every plan failed. You belong to a covenant sealed in eternity. The psalmist knew it. That is why he could face entire armies without trembling. He knew that the fire surrounding him was stronger than the swords before him. You carry that same covenant, the same fire, the same authority. Heaven answers those who know who they are. When the psalm ends with, "Save, Lord, may the King answer us when we call," it reminds us that heaven is not indifferent. The King does answer. The question is not whether he will, but whether we will trust while he prepares. Every call reaches his throne. Every cry is heard. Every sigh becomes incense before him. And when the appointed hour arrives, his response will not be subtle, it will be undeniable. The very people who questioned your faith will witness the outcome of divine justice. Every tongue that rose against you will be silenced not by your words, but by your results. Do not grow weary in this waiting. The battle you face is proof of the glory you carry. The more the enemy resists, the greater the anointing being forged within you. Keep declaring Psalm 20. Let it echo in your home, in your mind, in your prayer. The words are alive. They carry the same power they did when David spoke them thousands of years ago. Heaven still answers the faithful. The fire still falls. Evil still burns. Your calling is divine. Your protection is eternal. And your destiny is unstoppable. You are not defined by what tried to destroy you. You are defined by the God who preserved you. Heaven has already decreed your victory. The assignments written in darkness have been reduced to dust. You walk now in a field of ashes, but those ashes are sacred. They testify of a war you did not lose. Lift your head. The fire has done its work. You are free. If these words reached you today, if something within you recognizes the truth that heaven has already answered, I invite you to remain connected with this message of faith and restoration. Subscribe to our channel, stay close to this community of prayer and light, and continue walking under the divine fire that protects and renews every chosen soul. Heaven has spoken, and the flame still burns. There are moments in your journey when the weight of unseen warfare grows unbearable. You sense invisible resistance pressing against your every step, a fog that clouds your clarity, a heaviness that tries to steal your peace. You do not know where it comes from, but you feel it. These are the moments when you must remember that your life is not being lived on one plane alone. You are a spirit moving through visible and invisible worlds. Every choice, every prayer, every word carries a vibration that either strengthens the light or empowers the shadows. Psalm 20 stands as a divine decree over such battles. It reminds you that when you call, heaven not only hears, heaven responds with precision. The fire of God is never random. It burns exactly what must be removed so that your destiny can advance unhindered. The enemies of your soul are not always people. Sometimes they are thoughts that whisper lies at midnight, fears that paralyze your courage, or memories that replay past pain until you forget who you truly are. These are the real assignments of darkness, silent contracts that convince you to settle for less than what God promised. But the truth of Psalm 20 cuts through the fog. The Lord hear thee in the day of trouble. That one line is a verdict. It means that every whisper of fear, every deception planted to make you doubt your worth, is being overruled by the sound of divine authority. Heaven has heard you, and the response is already in motion. When heaven answers, it does not negotiate with evil, it consumes. It does not bargain with darkness, it eradicates. The consuming nature of divine fire is one of the most misunderstood aspects of God's mercy. What he burns, he loves enough to redeem. What he removes, he saves you from. So when you feel something in your life collapsing, relationships dissolving, opportunities vanishing, doors closing, do not despair. That is often the manifestation of heavenly fire doing its work. You prayed for deliverance, and heaven answered. But deliverance rarely comes wrapped in comfort. It comes wrapped in clarity. It is the painful realization that what once felt essential was actually the source of your bondage. In the quiet of surrender, something begins to shift. Your heart stops clinging to outcomes, your mind releases control, and suddenly peace returns. That peace is the first sign that heaven has intervened. The battle begins to end, not when your circumstances change, but when your inner alignment is restored. The evil assignment loses its authority the moment your heart stops resonating with fear. Fear is the shadow of faith misplaced. Every attack of darkness seeks to lure you into fear because fear opens doors that faith was meant to seal. But when you stand in the truth of Psalm 20, when you declare that heaven answers you, that God remembers you, that you are shielded by his name, you close those doors permanently. The enemy has no access where faith has taken root. David wrote Psalm 20, not as a man untouched by pain, but as a warrior who understood that every victory begins in surrender. May the Lord grant you according to your heart's desire and fulfill all your purpose. That is not the language of a man demanding his will. It is the voice of one who has aligned his will with heaven's. When your desires become purified through struggle, what remains is divine will clothed in human longing. Heaven answers that kind of prayer because it echoes the heart of God. Your true purpose is not something you discover. It is something you remember. It was written long before your birth, encoded in your soul, and Psalm 20 is the moment heaven reawakens that memory. You might wonder why God allows the attacks in the first place. Why not silence the enemy before he strikes? Why not prevent the pain before it wounds? Because without conflict, you would never uncover your capacity for faith. Without opposition, your divine authority would remain dormant. The fire that burns away evil also forges identity. Every battle is a mirror showing you what you carry. You do not discover the strength of a sword by admiring it in peace. You discover it when it meets resistance. Likewise, your spiritual armor reveals its glory only when the flames rise. The God who answers you through fire is not cruel. He is revealing to you that you are fireproof. There are seasons when the battlefield is internal. You appear calm on the outside, but inside, your spirit is exhausted. The war between faith and fear rages silently. You try to pray, but words fail. You try to hope, but the evidence mocks you. That is when Psalm 20 becomes a living force rather than a recited verse. Whisper it when you have no strength. Let the words carry what your emotions cannot. The Lord hear thee in the day of trouble. The name of the God of Jacob defend thee. That single line can shift atmospheres because it calls upon the covenantal nature of God. The same God who wrestled with Jacob, who renamed him Israel after the night of struggle, now fights for you. The name of the God of Jacob is not a poetic phrase. It is a reminder that you serve a God who meets his people in wrestling, not avoidance. He does not save you from every fight, he transforms you through it. When the psalm says, "May he send you help from the sanctuary," it points to a sacred truth. Help does not always come from where you expect. God rarely uses familiar channels. The sanctuary is not a location. It is the spiritual dimension of his presence. He will send you help through people you least anticipate, through opportunities that appear ordinary, through moments that seem accidental. Every divine rescue is wrapped in disguise. The key is discernment, to see the holy within the mundane. That stranger who offered kindness, that delay that saved you from danger, that closed door that redirected your path, all of it was sanctuary help. Heaven's assistance rarely arrives with trumpets. It arrives quietly but precisely on time. The enemy counts on your impatience. He knows that frustration makes believers careless. That is why you must learn to rest, even in warfare. Rest is not the absence of battle, it is the assurance of outcome. When your spirit rests, you stop reacting to every move of the enemy and start responding to every whisper of God. The enemy fights with noise. Heaven moves in silence. The one who knows this cannot be manipulated. You must come to that place where you no longer interpret silence as absence, but as strategy. Heaven answers not only with words, but with stillness. Sometimes the quiet is the answer, the calm before divine intervention erupts. It is written, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God." This is one of the most radical declarations of faith ever written. To trust in God's name means to release all reliance on visible strength. In ancient times, chariots symbolized military dominance, horses represented speed and advantage. To reject both was to appear foolish to the world. Yet that is exactly the paradox of faith. It looks foolish until it wins. When you choose faith over fear, patience over panic, prayer over retaliation, the world may mock you, but heaven begins to move. Your stillness becomes your sword. The peace that surpasses understanding is not weakness. It is divine strategy. There are assignments designed not just to attack you, but to break your lineage. Generational patterns, recurring cycles, emotional wounds passed down like inheritance. These are spiritual chains, disguised as personality traits. But the moment heaven answers you, those chains begin to break. Psalm 20 is not only for your moment, it is for your bloodline. When you stand in this prayer, you stand as an intercessor for generations. The fire that burns through your life purifies everything connected to you. The curses that survived centuries dissolve in the heat of your obedience. Heaven's response to your faith will echo in your descendants. The God who defended David still defends those who bear his psalm in their hearts. But to receive such defense, you must surrender the desire for vengeance. The fire of heaven is pure. It does not burn from bitterness. Many believers delay their own deliverance by demanding justice according to their wounds rather than God's wisdom. But divine justice is not revenge, it is restoration. When heaven burns an evil assignment, it does not stop at punishment. It brings balance. It restores what was stolen, heals what was broken, and teaches you what was hidden. That is why forgiveness is not weakness. It is weaponry. The moment you forgive, you disarm darkness. Evil loses its anchor. Heaven moves freely. Forgiveness is not for the offender. It is the key that opens your own prison. As you grow in understanding, you begin to see that the fire of heaven is not external. It is internal illumination. It burns through ignorance, through ego, through illusion. It reveals who you were before the world taught you fear. Every evil assignment begins with deception, the lie that you are powerless, forgotten, or unworthy. Heaven answers by reminding you of truth. The moment you remember who you are in God, the assignment fails. This is why revelation is more powerful than retaliation. The battle is not won by fighting the darkness, but by becoming so full of light that darkness has no space left to operate. To live in revelation is to walk in victory without needing to see it. And then comes the moment of recognition, when you realize that the very storm meant to destroy you has purified you. The betrayal that wounded you taught you discernment. The loss that broke you awakened gratitude. The delay that frustrated you refined your patience. Heaven's answers are rarely comfortable, but they are always perfect. You were never waiting for things to change. Heaven was waiting for you to transform. The day you awaken to this truth, you step into a peace that nothing external can disturb. Evil still exists, but its power over you is gone. You become untouchable not by hiding from darkness, but by walking in such awareness that it cannot deceive you again. Psalm 20 ends with rejoicing, not because the battle was easy, but because the outcome was divine. We will rejoice in your salvation, and in the name of our God we will set up our banners. Banners were raised after victory, symbols of triumph, visible to all. Today, your banner is your testimony. Every time you tell your story of survival, you raise a banner. Every time you encourage someone from the wisdom of your pain, you raise a banner. Every time you choose faith again after disappointment, you raise a banner. Heaven does not just answer you, it anoints you to become an answer for others. The fire that once consumed your enemies now lights your path to lead others out of darkness. Understand this, your warfare was not meaningless. The enemy targeted you because of your potential. You are not random. You are chosen, and the chosen are always refined through opposition. Heaven allowed the test not to break you, but to prove you. The proof of divine favor is not the absence of attack, but the inability of attack to prevail. You have survived too much to doubt now. Every scar is a verse in your psalm. Every tear is a word in your covenant. Every prayer you thought went unheard became fuel for the fire that is now clearing your path. So as you stand here, between what was and what will be, remember that you are surrounded by witnesses both seen and unseen. Heaven's army has encamped around you. The assignments written in darkness are being erased. Your name is being cleared in realms you have never seen. The energy of your destiny is shifting. Heaven has heard your cry, and the fire is already descending. You do not have to understand how. You only have to believe that it is done. The God of Jacob has remembered you, and his remembrance is final. Even now, let your heart rest in this truth. Heaven never forgets the faithful. The God who answered David, who stood with Daniel, who strengthened Esther, who empowered Mary, now surrounds you. The same divine hand that guided them through fire and famine is guiding you through your unseen battle. Every evil assignment has an expiration date, and it has come. The season of confusion is ending. The season of divine clarity begins. You will walk in a new level of discernment, of peace, of authority. The fire has not only burned your enemies, it has crowned you with understanding. If these words ignite something within you, hold them close. Let them echo in your spirit long after you stop reading. Heaven is not far. It is within you, waiting to manifest through your faith. And as you walk forward, remember, Every prayer you whisper is a spark, every act of faith a flame, every declaration of trust a blaze. Together, they form the fire that consumes every evil assignment sent against your life. You are covered, protected, chosen, and unbreakable. If this message spoke to your soul, if it reminded you that heaven still answers and the fire still falls, stay with us. Subscribe to our channel, join this circle of light and faith, and continue walking with others who have seen the same flame of deliverance. Every story, every prayer, every video is a reminder. Heaven hears, heaven moves, and heaven always wins. There is a holy mystery that unfolds when heaven answers. It is not always with thunder or visible miracles. Sometimes it comes as a whisper that steadies your heart, a peace that defies logic, a silence that signals completion. You begin to notice it not in the noise of circumstance, but in the calm beneath it. The same storm that once terrified you now reveals its purpose, to wash away what could not remain. In that quiet aftermath, Psalm 20 begins to live inside you. The words are no longer ancient lines from David's pen. They become the rhythm of your own deliverance. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. That day has already passed and you are still standing. You have survived because heaven did not forget your name. When the psalm declares that God sends help from his sanctuary, it reveals that heaven's intervention is not reactional, it is orchestrated. The help you receive today was prepared before the problem ever appeared. Every tear you cried was already accounted for in the divine equation of your redemption. You were never abandoned to chaos, you were being positioned. The traps laid in darkness, the whispers of slander, the unseen conspiracies against your peace, they were all permitted to reveal the depth of your protection. For without exposure, you would never have known how deeply heaven shields you. The evil assignment did not fail by accident. It failed because it was written to fail. Your name was spoken in divine fire, long before it was ever mentioned in human gossip. Every chosen soul must pass through the school of suffering. It is there that the voice of Psalm 20 becomes more than poetry. It becomes oxygen. When all else collapses, you find that only faith remains, and faith is enough. In your deepest pain, heaven is not distant. It is closest. God answers you not always with removal, but with revelation. He lets you see the futility of the weapons formed against you. He allows you to feel their impact, only to demonstrate that they cannot pierce your destiny. The blows that were meant to break you become the evidence of your divine endurance. You begin to realize that survival itself is a form of victory. You did not need to win every battle. You only needed to remain standing until the smoke cleared. Heaven handled the rest. There are assignments so meticulously designed that only the fire of God can expose them. They hide in layers of illusion. People who pretend to help while secretly binding. Circumstances that appear promising but drain your soul. Desires that glitter like gold but lead to emptiness. The fire of heaven burns through pretense. It strips the camouflage from evil. You might feel betrayed when truth is revealed, but that pain is holy. It is the pain of purification. The God of Psalm 20 answers not by hiding you from deception, but by lighting it on fire so that you can see. Every revelation you receive in seasons of confusion is an answer from heaven. Every hidden motive exposed is proof that divine justice is active. Heaven's fire does not destroy without purpose. It burns only to clarify. And clarity is the beginning of freedom. Most evil assignments depend on confusion to thrive. The enemy does not need to destroy you outright. He only needs to make you question what is true. Once you doubt your identity, he can shape your decisions. But when heaven answers, confusion dies. The fog lifts. You suddenly discern who is for you and who is not, what is right and what is distraction, where to go and where to stay. You begin to move differently, not from reaction but from revelation. The chains that bound your perception melt. You realize that deliverance is not only external, it is the liberation of the mind. Heaven's fire begins within, in the quiet awakening of understanding. As you continue walking through your own Psalm 20, you discover that God's answers often contradict logic. He will tell you to bless those who curse you, to forgive those who betrayed you, to give when you lack, to rest when you want to run. These are not human strategies, they are divine codes. They work because they reverse the energy of the assignment. Evil feeds on reaction. When you refuse to respond with bitterness, the assignment starves. When you pray instead of curse, the fire spreads. When you choose silence instead of vengeance, heaven multiplies your authority. This is how the chosen wage war, not through rage, but through righteousness. Every act of obedience becomes a weapon sharper than any sword. Faith under fire is the purest faith. It believes not because of signs, but in spite of absence. It holds the promise even when the evidence is gone. David wrote Psalm 20 in such faith before victory, not after. That is the essence of spiritual maturity, praising God in advance. Anyone can worship after deliverance, but only the anointed can worship in the waiting. When you declare, "Heaven will answer me," while standing in ashes, you summon armies of light. Angels move at the sound of faith. The spiritual realm responds not to desperation, but to conviction. When your voice carries the tone of trust, heaven recognizes its own echo. The same faith that opened seas and silenced lions still moves today. The fire of heaven is drawn to those who refuse to doubt. Heaven's fire also purifies your motives. Sometimes you ask for deliverance, but heaven delays because your heart still clings to what caused the bondage. You may want freedom, but you still crave approval from those who wounded you. You may pray for peace, but secretly desire vindication. The fire exposes those contradictions. It burns until what remains is pure surrender. Then the answer comes, not as relief, but as realignment. The evil assignment is burned not only around you, but within you. Every attachment to false identity, every emotional chain that tethered you to old pain, is consumed. When heaven finishes, you are lighter, freer, unrecognizable even to yourself. The greatest miracle is not that God changes circumstances, it is that He changes you until circumstances lose power. To walk in the aftermath of divine fire is to live in peace that others cannot understand. You stop fighting battles that are not yours. You stop explaining truths to those committed to misunderstanding. You stop trying to prove your worth to those blind to it. That quiet confidence is not arrogance, it is spiritual awareness. Heaven has already validated you. The applause of men is irrelevant when the King has already answered. You learn to smile even when nothing looks different because you sense the invisible shifting. You feel the atmosphere of your life becoming lighter. You sleep deeper. You breathe easier. These are not coincidences. They are symptoms of deliverance. The fire has done its work. It is important to understand that heaven's response is holistic. It addresses every dimension of your being. God does not only deliver your circumstances, He delivers your emotions, your thoughts, your memories. The trauma you carried for years begins to dissolve in light. The bitterness that once felt justified starts to release its hold. You begin to bless what once broke you because you see its role in shaping your faith. This is not denial, it is redemption. The evil assignment is transformed into divine wisdom. The same experiences that were sent to destroy you become the material from which God builds your ministry. Every scar becomes a sermon. Every loss becomes language for someone else's healing. Heaven never wastes pain. Every tear is recycled into power. When heaven answers, even time bends. What you thought was lost forever returns in better form. Opportunities resurface in unexpected ways. Relationships you mourned are replaced by connections rooted in truth. The years that seemed wasted are redeemed through acceleration. God restores not only what was stolen, but also the energy spent surviving the theft. This is the economy of heaven. Nothing is wasted. Everything is transfigured. The psalmist understood this when he said, "May the Lord fulfill all your petitions." It means every prayer, every cry, every whisper uttered in the night will find its answer. Some answers arrive through doors, others through closures. Both are mercy. Whether God says yes or no, it is always love disguised. There will be moments when you revisit the memories of old battles and realize how far you have come. The names that once triggered pain now evoke gratitude. The places that once held fear now feel sacred. You begin to bless the very storms that shaped you. This is the sign that heaven's work is complete, when remembrance no longer hurts, only humbles. You understand then that the fire did not come to destroy you. It came to reveal the indestructible within you. Every evil assignment has limits, but divine purpose does not. What God writes, no darkness can erase. The same hand that allowed the testing now crowns you with testimony. In the stillness that follows every answered prayer, gratitude becomes your language. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start saying, "Thank you, Lord." You see how every delay protected you, how every rejection redirected you, how every battle trained you. You realize that if heaven had answered earlier, you might have settled for less. God's timing was not cruelty, it was compassion. He waited until you could carry the blessing without collapsing under it. Heaven's fire refines capacity. The anointing you carry now is heavier than before, but you are strong enough to bear it. You are no longer praying from fear, but from authority. You speak not as one begging for deliverance, but as one declaring what has already been decreed. The more you grow in this awareness, the less you need external validation. You stop seeking signs and start living as one. Your peace becomes the evidence that heaven answers. When others panic, you remain still. When others doubt, you smile quietly, knowing that heaven's plan cannot be rushed. This calm faith confuses the enemy. He cannot provoke what has been purified. You become untouchable, not because attacks cease, but because they no longer find agreement within you. Every dart of accusation falls harmlessly. Every curse returns to sender without landing. The evil assignment burns out in midair because your frequency has shifted. You are aligned with divine fire, and darkness cannot dwell where light abides. In this state, you begin to intercede differently. You no longer pray merely for survival, but for transformation of the world around you. You realize that heaven answered not only for you, but through you. The fire that protected you now flows from you. Your words carry weight. Your presence brings peace. People feel lighter near you because the atmosphere around your life has been purified. This is how heaven multiplies its response. Through vessels who remain faithful, the psalm that once delivered you becomes the same psalm through which others find deliverance. You become the manifestation of Psalm 20, walking among men. Heaven's fire moves where you move because you have become its carrier. To remain in this posture requires humility. Spiritual power is sustained not by pride, but by remembrance. Never forget the nights you cried for answers, the moments you doubted your survival, the times you thought heaven had forgotten you. Gratitude keeps the flame alive. The moment you begin to take the fire for granted, it dims. Keep your heart soft. Keep your praise constant. The fire thrives in thanksgiving. Every breath you release with gratitude feeds the flame that guards your destiny. You are not maintaining the fire by effort, but by awareness. As long as you remember who your defender is, the protection remains. Even in seasons of peace, you must stay alert. The enemy waits for complacency, but you do not fear him, you recognize him. Recognition is your new defense. The same discernment that the fire birthed in you will warn you before new traps form. You will sense motives before words reveal them. You will see deception before it manifests. You will walk with quiet authority, untouched by chaos. The fire has not only destroyed your enemies, it has equipped your vision. You have become both survivor and sentinel, one who has been rescued and now guards others. This is the divine cycle of deliverance. Heaven answers you so that through you, others might be answered. Sometimes after the greatest deliverances, there is a strange emptiness. The noise of battle is gone, and silence feels foreign. Do not mistake that stillness for absence. It is the Sabbath of your soul, the holy rest that follows divine completion. Heaven has burned away everything unnecessary. Let the quiet heal you. Breathe. Rejoice. This is what freedom sounds like. Not shouting, not striving, but peace that hums in the background of every thought. The same God who answered you will sustain you. You no longer live in reaction to darkness. You live in rhythm with light. And so, Psalm 20 concludes not as a prayer but as a proclamation. You can feel it in your bones. The fire has fallen. The evil assignments are ash. The heavens are open. You are no longer pleading for help. You are walking as one who knows help is constant. You can face tomorrow without fear because your today stands as evidence that heaven answers. You will not return to the old anxieties, the old dependencies, the old confusion. You have crossed through the fire and emerged refined. Your words now carry the fragrance of faith, your eyes the calm of revelation, your heart the strength of one who has seen the unseen and still believes. Look back for a moment, not with regret, but with reverence. Every test that tried to erase you became proof of endurance. Every wound that tried to silence you became an opening for light. Every delay that seemed cruel became divine strategy. Heaven's answers were not always visible, but they were always perfect. You may not have understood then, but now you do. The fire was never your enemy. It was your escort into destiny. Every evil assignment was a shadow against the brilliance that you were becoming. And now, standing in that brilliance, you can only whisper gratitude. The war was worth it. The wait was sacred. The outcome was eternal. If your spirit bears witness to these words, it is because heaven is still answering you. The process is not over. It is expanding. What began as deliverance will continue as transformation. You will carry this light into your family, your work, your world. Every space you enter will feel the residue of the fire that refined you. You will speak and peace will follow. You will pray and chains will break. You will walk and the atmosphere will shift. You are no longer the one who cries for help. You are the one through whom help arrives. And if you feel this truth rising within, if you recognize that heaven has already begun to move for you, let this be your act of alignment. Subscribe to this channel and stay with this community of fire, faith, and awakening. Here, every message is a spark, every word a flame, every teaching a call to remember who you are. Chosen, defended, and consumed only by the light of God. Heaven has answered you. Walk in that fire. There comes a time in every believer's path when the soul learns to recognize the difference between an unanswered prayer and a prayer still unfolding. Heaven does not work in haste. It moves in patterns too intricate for human perception, weaving every joy and sorrow into a tapestry of purpose. What you once mistook for divine silence was never absence. It was orchestration. Psalm 20 stands as the eternal proof that heaven answers, not always immediately, not always visibly, but always completely. You have walked through fire, through the valley of misjudgment, through the shadow of betrayal, through the weight of spiritual fatigue, and yet something within you kept burning, a quiet, indestructible flame that refused to die. That was heaven's answer already working inside you long before it appeared outside. When the psalmist wrote, "May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble," he was not describing an event. He was defining a relationship. Trouble is temporary, but divine attention is eternal. Heaven does not simply hear, it remembers. The God of Jacob, who once wrestled with a man until dawn, still meets his children in struggle. The wrestling is not punishment, it is intimacy. Every tear you shed in confusion becomes holy water poured upon the altar of your destiny. Every sleepless night, every whispered question, every hidden pain, none of it has been wasted. The fire of heaven does not destroy your humanity. It reveals your divinity within it. To stand before God with brokenness is not weakness, it is truth, and truth is the language heaven understands best. You may have thought that your prayers vanished into the air, but they became the very fire that surrounded you. Heaven's answers often disguise themselves as endurance. You wanted rescue, but God gave resilience. You asked for the removal of enemies, but He gave discernment to see their plans before they matured. You sought escape, but He gave elevation. Each unanswered prayer was in fact answered differently, perfectly. Heaven never wastes words, and every plea uttered in sincerity becomes a seed. You do not always see its growth, but one day, under divine timing, it blossoms into understanding. Psalm 20 is that understanding, the realization that every trial was proof that heaven had already chosen you for victory. When evil assignments form, they carry the illusion of authority. Darkness always masquerades as power, but its roots are hollow. The moment the fire of heaven touches it, the illusion collapses. Every curse spoken against you, every scheme whispered in secrecy, every arrow released through envy has already met the consuming breath of God. The reason you are still standing is not that evil never touched you, but that it could not stay. You were shielded by a covering not made of human hands, but of divine promise. The same promise that preserved David, that silenced Saul's pursuit, that crowned a shepherd as king, now rests over you. Heaven's fire is not limited to history, it is alive in every heart that dares to believe. Faith is not blindness, it is sight beyond sight. When you declare that heaven answers, you are not ignoring reality, you are announcing a higher one. The world sees your battles, but heaven sees your becoming. The fire that burns around you is not there to punish, it is there to refine. When gold enters the furnace, its impurities rise to the surface. That is what your pain has been doing. It has been exposing, not destroying. Every anxiety, every insecurity, every hidden fear that surfaced in these seasons was brought up so it could finally be consumed. Heaven's purpose in the fire is never humiliation, it is purification. You are not being reduced, you are being revealed. There is a deep peace that comes when you stop fighting to control the outcome. The war within ends when you realize that heaven has never lost a battle. You do not need to understand every step. You only need to stay aligned with the one who walks beside you. The fire may still be burning, but you are no longer afraid of it. You have learned that the same flame that consumes evil also lights your path. You begin to see that deliverance is not about escaping danger, it is about walking through it untouched. Like the Hebrew men in Babylon's furnace, you realize that the fire cannot destroy what God has sanctified. The smell of smoke will not cling to your spirit because you were never meant to perish. You were meant to shine. Each verse of Psalm 20 becomes a spiritual code you now live by. May the Lord remember all your offerings. Heaven remembers what earth forgets. Every time you chose integrity over convenience, heaven recorded it. Every kindness you gave in secret, every temptation you resisted, every time you forgave instead of retaliating, all of it became incense before the throne. Heaven's fire burns brightest where obedience has been tested. You are not forgotten, you are marked. The divine remembrance that covered David covers you. What the world calls coincidence, heaven calls covenant. That is why the psalmist could say with confidence, "May He grant you according to your heart's desire and fulfill all your purpose." Because once you align your desire with God's will, there is no longer a separation between the two. To understand this fully, you must look back with new eyes. The betrayals that broke your trust were lessons in discernment. The rejections that wounded your heart were doors closing to protect you. The delays that frustrated you were pauses to build capacity. Heaven's timing is never cruel, it is corrective. God does not withhold what you need, He withholds what would harm you if received too soon. Every waiting season refines a virtue: patience, humility, endurance, gratitude. You may have thought heaven was silent, but in truth, it was speaking through process. You were not denied, you were developed. Every moment of endurance added strength to the foundation of your future. The longer you walk with God, the more you realize that His answers are rarely dramatic. They come quietly, like dawn replacing darkness. One morning you wake and realize the fear is gone. The anxiety that once paralyzed you has dissolved. The bitterness that once controlled your words has vanished. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself because peace has become your defense. That is the mark of heaven's response. When the inner war ceases, outer battles lose meaning. The evil assignment has been burned, not only externally but internally. It cannot return because it has no residue left to attach to. You have been purified by the process itself. The fire of heaven is eternal because it originates from love. Divine fire is not wrath, it is holiness. It burns everything that keeps you distant from truth. It destroys lies, illusions, attachments, and fear. It frees you from the prison of appearances. The evil that once sought your downfall becomes a teacher unwillingly serving your transformation. You begin to thank God for the storms that once terrified you, because they carried revelation inside them. Every trial you survived increased your understanding of His nature. You no longer see God as rescuer only, you see Him as refiner. Rescue removes you from danger, but refinement removes the danger from within you. This is the highest form of deliverance, the kind that leaves you changed. There is a level of maturity where praise replaces complaint. When you live from that place, you stop chasing blessings and start attracting them. You no longer beg heaven to answer because you realize heaven is always responding to alignment. Every time your thoughts, words, and actions harmonize with divine will, doors open without struggle. Psalm 20 is not a formula, it is a frequency. Those who live in gratitude resonate with it naturally. When you walk in trust, your atmosphere shifts. The same fire that once protected you now radiates through you. You become an agent of deliverance for others. People near you will feel peace without knowing why. That is heaven answering through your presence. Your life, when surrendered, becomes a continuation of this psalm. The words, "The Lord saves His anointed," are not history. They are prophecy. You are living evidence that salvation is more than survival. It is restoration, empowerment, and divine partnership. Heaven answers not only to save you, but to send you. You have work to do. The fire did not come to end your story. It came to ignite your calling. Those who once doubted you will one day come to you for guidance. You will speak with authority, not because you studied it, but because you lived it. You will say, "I know heaven answers," and your peace will make it undeniable. There will always be new battles, but you will face them differently now. You no longer panic when opposition rises because you understand that opposition is confirmation. The devil does not fight what does not threaten him. Resistance means relevance. Every new attack is proof of new territory. Instead of shrinking, you stand taller. You declare with quiet conviction, "The name of the Lord defends me." You do not shout it in fear, you whisper it in authority. The darkness recognizes that tone and retreats. The fire that once fell upon your enemies now emanates from you. You are no longer waiting for deliverance. You have become deliverance embodied. The evil assignment, whatever form it takes, cannot outlast divine decree. Heaven's decrees are eternal. They cannot be reversed by jealousy, curses, or manipulation. You have been sealed by a covenant written in blood, the covenant of the Lamb whose victory is timeless. Every believer who walks under that covenant carries the same authority that David declared in Psalm 20. When you speak the name of the Lord, you are invoking that eternal covenant. The angels respond because they recognize that name as their command. The fire responds because it knows its origin. You are no longer praying from earth upward, you are declaring from heaven downward. That is what happens when faith matures. It shifts from pleading to partnering. As you continue your journey, you begin to see divine fingerprints in everything. The people you meet, the timing of events, the unexpected provisions. They all fit together with precision too perfect to be random. Heaven's answers are not only about moments of deliverance, they are about patterns of grace. The more you trust, the more you perceive. You realize that even what appears ordinary is sacred when seen through gratitude. You stop dividing life into spiritual and normal, because for those aligned with heaven, everything is spiritual. The sound of rain, the quiet of morning, the laughter of a friend, all become signs that heaven is near. You no longer need miracles to believe, because existence itself becomes miraculous. The psalm ends with victory, but victory in God's kingdom is not about triumph over others, it is triumph over self. The greatest enemy was never the witchcraft outside, but the unbelief inside. The fire of heaven burns that unbelief until all that remains is certainty. You now walk in the awareness that you are sustained, surrounded and seen. You no longer wonder if heaven answers. You embody the answer. Your peace is a declaration, your joy a sermon, your gratitude a shield. Even your silence becomes a weapon. For silence in the presence of trust terrifies darkness. The one who is calm in crisis holds power that noise cannot imitate. Heaven's fire has not only consumed evil, it has consecrated you. The same flame that exposed deception has illuminated destiny. You are not who you were when this psalm began. The battles have refined you, the waiting has deepened you, the tears have baptized you. You have become what David became, a person after God's own heart, not perfect, but pure in intention, not sinless, but surrendered. Heaven answers such souls instantly because they no longer speak from fear, but from resonance. When you pray now, it is not to inform God, but to align yourself. Prayer becomes conversation, not negotiation. You feel heaven's breath in your own, its rhythm in your heartbeat. There is no end to this fire because it is the nature of love itself. Divine love burns endlessly, consuming everything false and illuminating everything true. It never leaves you where it found you. Every day becomes a new chapter in your psalm, a continuation of divine communion. You wake with gratitude instead of anxiety. You sleep with peace instead of fear. You live knowing that heaven answers not occasionally but continuously. You walk as one who carries an open heaven. You no longer wait for signs. You are the sign. Your very existence testifies that God still intervenes, still redeems, still restores. So when you read Psalm 20 again, you no longer read it as a petition, but as a declaration. You know now that the Lord answer you in the day of trouble is not a hope. It is a certainty. You know that He will send you help from the sanctuary means help has already been dispatched. You know that the name of the God of Jacob defend you means protection is active, not pending. You know that every evil assignment has already met its end in the fire of divine justice. You know, above all, that heaven has not forgotten you. You have felt its breath, seen its fire, heard its silence, and lived its mercy. The day will come when you tell your story and realize that every chapter was sacred. The moments of despair were where faith was born. The betrayals were where discernment was sharpened. The losses were where detachment from illusion was learned. The victories were never yours alone. They were heaven's through you. And as you speak your story, others will find strength. They will see in you what they have doubted in themselves, that God still answers, that darkness still burns, that destiny still prevails. This is the legacy of those who walk with the fire of Psalm 20. They become living altars, human sanctuaries where heaven and earth meet. Through them, the world remembers that evil never wins for long. The assignments of darkness may rise like storms, but the lightning of heaven always strikes first. The psalmist's voice echoes through time. We will rejoice in your salvation, and in the name of our God we will set up our banners. Those banners now wave through your life, every act of kindness, every moment of peace, every testimony of faith is a banner lifted high, declaring to every realm, seen and unseen, that heaven answers. You are that testimony, you are that banner, you are that fire. Let no shadow convince you otherwise. Even in your quietest moments, heaven surrounds you. Every breath you take carries proof that you are defended by a power older than time and stronger than any curse. You walk under divine surveillance, and every step you take leaves traces of light behind. The fire has burned every falsehood. Now only truth remains. You are free. You are chosen. You are answered. And if these words have stirred something deep within you, if you can feel that same divine fire moving through your spirit even now, do not let this be the end. Let it be the continuation of your awakening. Subscribe to this channel, stay connected to this circle of faith and revelation, and keep walking with us through every psalm, every truth, every flame of divine wisdom. For heaven is not silent. It never was. It speaks through the fire, through the word, through the stillness, and through those who choose to listen. And as long as you keep your heart open, every evil assignment will continue to burn away in the presence of the eternal answer, God Himself.